Alright guys, welcome to my YouTube channel, and on today's stream, we're going to talk about China's influence on railway infrastructure development in Africa and Southeast China. Before we proceed, don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications to get the latest videos as they drop. Having done that, let us dive into what we have for today. Africa, a continent with an entire land area of 30.37 million square kilometers, or 11.7 million square miles, enough to fit in the US, China, India, Japan, Mexico, and many European nations combined. Also is home to 54 countries and about 1.2 billion souls. There's this general misconception about the true dimensions of Africa, especially amongst those living in Europe and the Americas. The problem with maps is not that Africa is wrongly sized, far from it, but the Mercator projection attempts to place the spherical shape of the world onto a cylinder, causing areas closest to the poles to be stretched. Africa, that is sitting on the equator, barely changes in size. Meanwhile, the countries furthest from the equator become inflated from their true sizes on this type of map. This has helped undermine the challenges in connectivity and transportation infrastructure currently faced by countries residing in Africa, as it is the fastest growing urbanizing area on the planet. Africa does not have a large-scale railway infrastructure, and to bridge this infrastructural gap, billions have been invested, with the majority of the funding coming from China. This is more than just impressive feats of engineering, passing through the rainforest, jungles, safari camps, and deserts. They are symbols of better connected societies, economic opportunities, international alliances, and a shifting balance in the world of construction. To get to grasp why China is so heavily involved in Africa's railway infrastructural growth, you have to time jump to 1955, where the first large-scale Afro-Asian conference, known as the Bandung Conference, was held. The purpose of this meeting was to discuss world peace and to work together in the light of Western colonialism. From that meeting, the Tazara Railway was born in 1975, which was a 1,860-kilometer link between Zambia and Tanzania, with the hopes of exporting its copper without having to have altercations with the white minority landowners. The Tazara Railway, also called the Tanzam Railway, is a railway in East Africa linking the port of Dar es Salaam in East Tanzania with the town of Kapir Mposhi in Zambia's Central Province, which is a single-track railway operated by the Tanzania-Zambia Railway Authority, which was funded in no little part by China. And going beyond the Bandung Conference, China has been busy in Nigeria, constructing the landmark modern double-track rail lines in the country, which connects Lagos, Africa's largest city, to the country's industrial base, Ibadan. This has been officially put into service, making it the first modern double-track standard railway in the West Africa region. The railway, which stretches about 157 kilometers with a speed of 150 kilometers per hour, marks a landmark cooperation project between China and Africa under the Belt and Road Initiative, which has the potential to significantly improve Nigeria's infrastructure and boost its economic development. The project is designed, built, and undertaken by the China Civil Engineering Construction Corporation. The Export-Import Bank of China provided the funds. The Belt and Road Initiative, or BNR, known in Chinese and formerly in English as One Belt, One Road, or OBOR for short, is a global infrastructure development strategy adopted by the Chinese government in 2013 to invest in nearly 70 countries and international organizations. Even though China stands on the premise that its involvement in railroad infrastructure, construction, and upgrade in Africa is an exercise in altruism, yet investing in Ethiopia, one of the world's poorest countries, is more strategic and less philanthropic. The United States has scaled down its engagement on the continent. This is an opportunity that is being fully grabbed by the Chinese government. With the construction of various factories, supply of basic farming implements, and more complicated machinery easy to purchase because the Chinese refuse to use expensive machinery in its manufacture, and construction of Ethiopia-Djibouti rail line. This is a new standard gauge international railway that serves as the backbone of the new Ethiopian railway network. The rail network measures 756 kilometers connecting the landlocked city of Addis Ababa to the ports of Djibouti, which costs a staggering $7 billion, which was funded by the Chinese government and began operations in 2018. Nonetheless, there have been complaints, especially from the Western media, that the Chinese firms handling the construction have refused to employ the locals and in return have not helped in unemployment and poverty reduction. This is further from the truth. In Nigeria, the construction of the double-track line hired more than 10,000 locals at its peak and directly created more than 4,000 jobs for the locals in order to transfer the operation to them in the future, while the Ethiopia-Djibouti Railway provided an estimated 8,000 jobs for both countries, although it can be said that those jobs do not involve senior management positions. And then, There are returns of investments expected from the operational projects. Well, some have not been bringing the planned revenue, and some countries are having difficulties in paying the loans promptly, single track. And this is where China's policy of friendship making comes to play, as the country has waived most debts African nations owed to her while increasing the grace periods of others. Also, by developing factories and improving economies and the income levels of the locals, the populace has improved spending power. In turn, improves revenue generation for the railway projects. Southeast Asia, which comprises countries that include Brunei, Burma, Cambodia, Timor-Leste, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam, which are known as the Indo-Chinese Peninsula and historically as Indochina. They sit on a landmass of 4.5 square kilometers and have a population of 655 million souls, which is about 8.5% of the world's population. It is the third most populous geographical region in Asia. Train travel between is becoming very feasible, as one can travel from Vientiane to Phnom Penh via Bangkok, Ho Chi Minh City to Luang Prabang by way of Hanoi and Kunming, Hong Kong to Singapore via half of those stations plus Kuala Lumpur. This is linking and reducing travel time between some of Southeast Asia's biggest cities. When the Japanese trading house Itochu and train makers Hitachi withdrew from the soon-to-be-decided 7 billion tenders for a high-speed rail project near Bangkok, it became another victory for China in its grand plans to connect Southeast Asia with the railways. Thailand has for decades been the centerpiece of Tokyo's strategy for Southeast Asia, and long-discussed plans to build extensive Shinkansen-style rail lines in the country's east and north were meant to cement the relationship between the two nations. But Japan's goals have been stalled by disagreements about financing and other details. Beijing, on the other hand, has managed to forge ahead with the construction of a separate high-speed rail line in northern Thailand. China's high-speed rail ambitions in the Southeast Asia are not limited to Bangkok, as part of China's 12th five-year plan is to build a high-speed rail connecting the countries involved in the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. The goal of building the rail line is to improve transportation, collaboration, and trade in the China-ASEAN Free Trade Area. This construction is to help smaller member nations in various ways. Most importantly, employment rates and the economic status of the smaller member nations will most likely grow due to the introduction of rail. To this end, Chinese rail lines will extend even further south, stretching through Malaysia and feeding into Singapore. Singapore is the most developed member of the association, which is located at the tip of the Malay Peninsula. It has one of the strongest relationships with Washington, though, giving the project added significance for China. If Beijing can woo Singapore successfully and bring them into an understanding, that will most likely mean that the devotion of Singapore to Washington will decrease. This, in turn, will give China more freedom to operate in Southeast Asia, as reasoned by Stephen Nagy, Senior Associate Professor at International Christian University in Tokyo. He also added that it could mean that ASEAN would become more amenable to Chinese demands, such as its push for the control of the South China Sea. The recent shift in Malaysian politics has put China's plans for Singapore on hold. However, after his election in May, Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad decided to hold up until further notice the plans of a 20 billion 688 kilometer East Coast rail line connecting southern Thailand to Kuala Lumpur, and postponed for 2 years a 350 kilometer high-speed rail link between the Malaysian capital and Singapore. China has been very keen to develop its inland and has heavily pushed for its westward push towards the Central and Southeast Asia. The country's $1 trillion Belt and Road Initiative is designed to create transport infrastructure for China to import energy and other vital resources from and export goods to other parts of the Eurasian continent without relying on its coastal area that is vulnerable to potential Western sanctions or naval blockages. ICU's Nagy pointed out, China, which just recently started installing, operating, and using high-speed rails, has already caught up with Japan's Shinkansen in the last decade or so. The dream of a trans-Asian railway dates as far back as the colonial days when the British and the French tried to develop a rail network connecting their colonies in Indochina. In 1995, ASEAN members embraced a similar idea, reflecting an inspiration to unify all Southeast Asia under its initiative, said Seiya Sukegawa, a former Japanese trade official and associate professor at Kokushikan University of Tokyo. This brings us to the question of what is the BRI as regards its relation in Asia. The BRI is viewed by Beijing as vital in securing its boundaries on the Asian mainland, as it is bordered by 15 nations, including unstable states such as Afghanistan and nations seeking new partnerships in opposition to the U.S., such as Russia. BRI investments are viewed as a way to facilitate China's periphery diplomacy, trade and infrastructure partnerships with the countries along this enormous land border. In summary, China is giving Africans a decision to make between themselves and the Western colonials and taskmasters who do not care about the well-being of their citizenry. While China's interest in linking Southeast Asia is for the development of the region and its populace, and also to secure the sovereign borders of China, let us know the next video you want us to make, or your experience down in the comment section down below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the subscribe button. I hope you'll have a great day, everybody, and I will see you all next time. Thanks for watching.